Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, before we talk about a very newsy and busy start to the week for Cubs,
Yes.
I just want to send fans to NorthsideTerritoryShop.com. You can get all your pullovers, your Northside Territory gear. Our Northside Territory sickos can check out whatever they want, coffee mugs, notebooks, bags, all sorts of stuff. So, would love for you to check out the site, get some Northside Territory gear, rep it at Wrigley, at the bars around Wrigleyville or wherever you live. Would appreciate that. But Patrick, a lot of news this week, and it started off with a really rough Monday in the sense that Kyle Tucker did not, just has looked like the Kyle Tucker that we've seen for the past month, but it did not look right. It did not feel right. And finally, after what was it, 3 groundouts and a pop-up on Monday, Craig Counsell decided to give Kyle Tucker some time off, and he missed Tuesday's game, sat and watched, and we'll see how long this lasts. But I feel like, it's one of those things you have to weigh. You need this guy desperately to succeed. He's going to have to beat Kyle Tucker to succeed in October. But when do you kind of say, like, okay, it's time to pull back? And they decided that time is now.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that would have been unthinkable and began to feel inevitable. And it just really has snowballed here of the boos at Wrigley Field, just Tucker not really running to first base at all on some of these ground outs. Granted, they were kind of right up the line, like automatic outs, but still throwing bats and helmets, which is normal for most major league players, but very out of character for him. And just the numbers, and also how he was getting to those numbers. Just, a ground ball rate approaching 50% in the second half for a guy who was once compared to like Ted Williams in terms of his swing. Just kind of an unbelievable stretch here for him to just be benched for a huge series against a division rival that had started running away in the National League Central.
Yeah, I actually felt like he looked pretty good for a couple games in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
There were some line drives that he hit that I was like, okay, maybe he's getting back to who he was. And then it cratered. Like it was one of those things where it's like, oh, you have a couple good games. It's like, oh, he's turning the corner. Nope, not even close. Like it looked bad the past week. Toronto was, I think we saw him hitting out on the field for the first time. Yeah. Like for one
breaking
of the first
news. Yeah.
He's not a guy that he's a cage guy. I think even like it was something that we kind of talked about in spring training. It's like you don't see Kyle Tucker out on the field. He gets his work done in the cage, and that's what he does. That's how he does it. I think he's just looking to switch things up, try anything new to kind of get out of this rut. I ultimately think you have to get him right. I don't think anybody would disagree with this. You have to get him right if the Cubs are going to even look close to the team that they were and compete for, a deep playoff run. I think this team has looked better the past 5 games. Not dominant by any means, but winning the game is the point of it, right? Outscoring the opponent is the point, and they've done that more often than not the past few games. But to really be the powerhouse that they seemed like they were, they need maybe not that top tier elite Kyle Tucker, but they need it pretty close to great Kyle Tucker. I mean, obviously, the whole point of acquiring him was this is a superstar that stabilizes the offense and leads to a little bit more consistency with everything, and that that the same slump has happened is what was so perplexing for everyone and so frustrating, I think, to watch. This was not supposed to happen, and why it's happened, whether it's the finger, whether it's the finger leading to mechanical changes, whether it's just a mental thing, whatever it is, it's gotten to a point where I think Craig Counsell. I think we could debate the timing of it, and I understand fans want sometimes want things a little bit sooner, but I think for me, uh, my whole thing was like it's what I'm just saying. Like you need him, so you have to try and get him right. Uh, and I understand the desire to do things quicker, but you just never know when things are going to turn. Like I said, he looked like he was about to turn in St. Louis, and it didn't happen. And they gave it another week, and it sounds like you were there, Patrick. I had left by this point, but I think Counsell said that this was something that talked about over the weekend with Tucker.
Yeah, Counsell said he spoke with Tucker on Sunday night, and they quote, put a lot on the table. And I thought Jed Hoyer made a good point. I guess that was Monday, of just saying, like, if you're dealing with major league players, like, you can't just like panic. Like, they see through that. If you're kind of like reacting to every at bat or every game or even every series, like, that just seeps into the clubhouse. And I think particularly with a player like Kyle Tucker, who obviously they need, and also who just like logically is their best hitter and should be getting out of this at some point, right? Like, this can't go on forever. I mean, maybe it will until he reaches free agency. I don't know. But I think this idea of sort of like anyone else works, or that, there aren't potential consequences to, either embarrassing Tucker or kind of pushing that button too soon. It's just been really puzzling, because Tucker's whole thing was, one, how confident and calm he's been. I mean, this guy who's always just kind of not flustered. Also, he has been a guy, because of his all-around skills, who could just, like, even on a quiet night, it would, maybe draws a walk and, lines a single into right field, and, maybe steals a base, makes a nice play. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, like, he did a lot today, even if he didn't hit a home run. And, like, everything had just sort of started to erode. I think his offense was carrying over into other parts of his game. He says he's fine. Counsell says he's healthy and available. Jed Hoyer, kind of dismissed the idea of, like, stashing him on the IL or something like that. And then you have Brewers manager Pat Murphy on 674, the Cubs flagship radio station, has asked kind of a general state of the Cubs question about their, recent slump and offensive slide. I believe it was on the Mully and Haw show, and Murphy goes, I think Tucker's hurt. And what he was also trying to say was, this kid's a class act. He doesn't want to complain. He feels a responsibility, but he thinks there's something wrong physically with him. And obviously, him and Counsell, their relationship, there's a certain distance now, even though they were coworkers, and Murphy coached Counsell at Notre Dame. But the reason I put it in my story was, like, what Murphy said is like a perception that's out there of, I spoke with someone from another team who's just like, he just doesn't look comfortable in the box, and that he can be pitched to differently now. And, like, no one really knows why.
Yeah. I mean, I think like what you said there at the end, especially is what's most obvious for everyone. I don't know if he's hurt. There's been so many denials about it that I have to just, that we have to assume that he's not hurt, because I like, if he is, I think it's been a huge mistake. This is something you needed to address after, like earlier, maybe a week or two ago, at least. Like, if you wanted, like, he did so well in June, I get, like, okay, it's an annoyance, but he can play through it. And players do this all the time.
Yeah.
But then after July, you kind of have to say, like, okay, maybe we take a step back, especially when things are starting to get out of hand with the division. It's like, let's make sure that he's healthy and ready to help us win the wild card. I have to assume he's okay as far as health goes. And if that's the case, the Cubs have had some recent success with giving guys 2, 3, 4 games off and then them coming back and things clicking. I don't know if that's going to happen with Kyle Tucker. It feels kind of random. It happened with Seiya Suzuki, and he went on one of the best. Like, it basically turned his career around, because since then he's been a pretty consistent power, offensive player. They did it with Miguel. That was with Ross, I believe, at the end of 22. Maybe it was 23. And then I think it was 22. And then Amaya and Counsell had that. He sat Counsell, or he sat Amaya for 3 or 4 games. And that turned him around. Matt Shaw sat for 3 games. I think he played he came in as a defensive replacement, but 3 games before the break, had the mental reset of the break, and now look at Matt Shaw. So I don't know. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it clicks. This is a veteran, like you said, steady guy. I don't know if this is what he needs or what's going on. I felt not that long ago very confident that he was just going to be fine. It would all work out. I just don't know. I don't want to make any guarantees because this game's so weird, and we'll see. But all right, Patrick, let's take a quick break, and I want to talk about the guy that has stepped in and kind of sparked this little mini resurgence for the Cubs.
The dog days of summer means it's time for the boys of summer to kick it into gear, and the best way to cash in on your baseball IQ is with DraftKings Sportsbook. Never bet on baseball before? It's simple. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride with your squad and hope for the best. No spreadsheets, just vibes and dingers. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers, bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Patrick, Owen Casey, the fans were calling for him. People wanted him to play.
Fans are right. They
get
the victory lap today.
They definitely do. He looked really good in game 1, had that blue pit in game 2, drove in multiple runs, a home run. I think the first hit that he had in game 1 of the doubleheader on Tuesday was the big one. That's a 2-out, bases loaded. These are the opportunities the Cubs have been squandering for weeks now. They were getting every big hit for the first couple months of the season. They haven't gotten any in the past month and a half, 2 months. That's hyperbole. They've gotten some, but not enough. And they finally got a few. Owen Casey came through. I don't think there's any doubt that for 2 games there, he's impacted this team, in a significant way and given them kind of what they need.
No doubt. I mean, I think the timing is just sort of hilarious, just how this unfolded, because there was this clamoring for Owen Casey, and you saw it against some good pitchers, some big moments, hitting the different parts of the field. Like, you see why, even I think people we've talked to who are not always high on Cubs prospects, who are not in the organization, can just say, like, that dude can flat out hit. Maybe defensively, he made some nice plays.
Yeah.
He's still kind of a work in progress there, and there's going to be, dips and valleys, but he certainly came through. I think circling back to what we were talking about earlier, I think with Tucker, there is an unknown of like what makes this guy tick. Like he has really good relationships in the clubhouse. Teammates like love being around him, but there isn't a whole lot of history there. I think kind of getting out of this, could be difficult, like to your point earlier. And so to have a guy who was a top, 50, 75 prospect, a guy who got a lot of time at AAA Iowa to kind of work through things. It just feels like he had checked all the boxes to come up. He was not rushed. I think there's been the appropriate amount of hype on him until recently. Like he was not the number 2 overall pick. He was not the trade he came over in was, less than enthusiastically received. And so I don't know. What have you heard about sort of like Casey, the hitter, Casey, the student of the game, and how he got to this point?
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone knew his flaws, right? Tremendous power. He needed to tap into it a little bit more, and they were always confident he would. That probably started around midway last year. And I think at the beginning of this season, they just really wanted him to work on the in zone swing and miss. He wasn't crazy with chasing, although he could. The chase would happen every once in a while. But I think the biggest issue they saw was this guy needs to make more contact in the zone. That's too often he's swinging through pitches he should be driving. Very subtle changes, I think, with like hand placement and things like that. But they really honed in on that, and that was something like kind of like a player development directive. He took to it. The coaches took to it. The hitting coaches at AAA, Steve Polikoff, Rachel Folden. The hitting coordinators are guy Andy Haynes has been at Wrigley this week. He helped with this. It's a kind of like a whole staff type situation where I think people knew like this is a really important player for the organization. He has this flaw that will be exposed in the big league unless we work on it. And he got to work, and it seems like he's really done. The zone miss, the in zone miss, has dropped every month, and you look at that with that the strikeout rate has dropped every month. Mm-hmm. I think he's still going to strike out a lot in the big leagues. I think that's inevitable. It's going to be really hard to completely fix that issue against the highest level of pitching. It's just a different. We've probably said this on this show a lot, but I heard it again this week. The jump from AAA to the majors is bigger than it's ever been. It's just there's a huge gap. The lack of the losing of the minor league systems of the lower levels. It's just a bigger. The talent is a little diluted in the sense that I guess people that shouldn't be moving up are moving up quicker. Promotions are more aggressive. Not as much and not as many levels to kind of work on your craft. So the jump from AAA to majors, that's just one of the reasons. There's so many reasons, but the breaking balls, the fastballs, everything's better in the big leagues. And Owen Casey's going to be challenged. But look, for two games that these past 2 games, and just like in general while he's played, I don't think there's any denial of what he's provided. I'll say this. I understand where Craig Counsell was coming from when he wasn't playing him. I think he probably should have gotten a start against the Pirates. Those are like 3 pitchers. I think they were all righties. Not the toughest staff when Paul Skeens isn't out there. I think it would have been nice to give him a start. I understand that. Look, people were like texting me, fans that I know, friends that I have, why isn't he starting? Why isn't he starting? And I kind of played devil's advocate and explained. And I said, first of all, we don't know how he's going to look. Like Matt Shaw, Pete Crow Armstrong, all these kids struggled big time when they first came up. So who knows how good he is out there? A lot of people wanted Ian Happ to sit. Ian Happ has been crushing righties since the All-Star break. I understand he's going to be a pariah among the fan base. I get it. Like the fans love to hate on Ian Happ. That's fine. He's been really good against right-handed pitching since the All-Star break. You can't sit him when your offense is struggling that much against righties. I think the only answer really was, are you sitting Seiya again, or are you sitting Kyle Tucker? I get my thing was like, if you're going to do it, you got to sit Kyle Tucker for multiple games and get the reset in. And they're finally doing that. And that's what happened. But I also understood, like, we got to get this guy going, like we said in the previous segment, as far as Kyle Tucker goes. So it was a tough decision. I don't know if this would have happened I wonder what would have happened if Miguel Amaya didn't get hurt. What would we be talking about right now as far as Kyle Tucker sitting? But I do think it kind of was like the perfect setup where it's like, okay, we have this roster spot and we have this potential looming like issue with Kyle Tucker. Let's give him a little bit more time, and if it doesn't work, here's the guy, and we'll play him and we'll see what he can do. And I don't know if that was the exact plan, but it's kind of played out that way, and I think it's. They were as patient as you could be with Kyle Tucker, and now they have the spark, and he's provided it. He's an exciting kid. Got to give credit to Willie Castro for yesterday's performance as well. I think those were the two stars of Tuesday. Castro's homer, Castro's throw home, game 1 homer, game 2 throw home. Those were huge swings in the game. But those two guys, you got to give a ton of credit. And the Cubs have won 4 or 5 now. And that's, it didn't feel like they were about to do that. When I left the ballpark on Monday, I said, it has been a while since it's felt like that. Now, maybe the weather contributed to the doom and gloom of it all, but it did not feel good at Wrigley on Monday. It was, and I guess it goes to show like things can shift quickly in this game.
One last quick note on Casey. I know we're talking about a small sample here, and I'm going to talk about an even briefer snapshot, but just the handful of times we've talked to him, I feel like there's been that natural maturation process has occurred. I'm thinking of a couple of years ago, he's playing for Team Canada in the WBC, and when, not that you judge everything off of how someone talks to the media, but you could tell how young he was, what a raw kind of prospect he was. I mean, someone who's turned 23, who has several years under his belt, multiple seasons, the high levels of the minors, who's produced, who's played in WBC. I think he's been a futures game guy. Just all that you can tell that he is just a little more prepared for this moment. Not that he was supposed to be prepared for it 2 years ago, but that you can see when you hear about the stuff he's done behind the scenes, the kind of caliber of people he's working with, the numbers he's put up. Just, a guy who kind of looks like he belongs. And I think that matters in kind of smaller, subtle ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Haven't had a ton of time to talk with him since his call up, but there has been a maturation here, and you always want to see that with young players. All right, we'll come back after this break and touch on maybe the unheralded part of this team that's led to some wins.
FT fans, you want to have confidence when you go out in public? Absolutely. We can't all wear a backwards hat like me, but you can get some True Classic fit shirts. It almost looks like, oh, wow, this shirt was tailored for me. Nope, it's every True Classic. This John is soft, it is smooth, and it makes you look a little jacked. I'm just saying.
And Kratz, you are jacked, and you are spot on. True Classic is the spot to go if someone's like, where do I get shirts? True Classic. The colors are fantastic. They've sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers. Their shirts just win. The feel, the tailored look, the price. We all wear True Classic on FT. I mean, Cam Maben literally can't say enough about them too. Next time we have Cam on. Hit up trueclassic.com/Val. Give it a shot. Upgrade your wardrobe. and save on True Classic at trueclassic.com/foul. That's trueclassic.com/FOUL.
Patrick, on June 24th, I want to say, June 24th, Jameson Taillon had a really bad start against the Cardinals. Since then, the Cubs rotation has a 303 earned run average. That's best in baseball during that span. So June 25th on. That's nearly 2 months now of the starting rotation being ridiculously good, ridiculously, just the leaders of the team. And it's gone overlooked because the offense has struggled and they haven't won enough games. The Brewers got white hot, took over the division. So we just haven't given enough credit to this starting rotation. Jameson Taillon returned yesterday, pitched really well after what looked like he was about to have an awful night. Got to give props to them. I have no clue how long this will last, just like I have no clue how long Kyle Tucker's struggles will last. I don't. They're probably playing a little bit above their heads, and that's fine. Who cares? Get the results and try and they've kind of stabilized and saved this team from probably a potential tailspin. But obviously, a concerning part of it all is what happened with Cade Horton on Monday. This isn't an elbow or a shoulder. This isn't something like that. But a blister. These are the types of things that can linger. He has dealt with it in the past. It sounds like it is a yearly occurrence, according to him. But maybe it's nothing. It sounds like he's downplaying it. They're going to play it day to day. He's been a stud. He's been, for a little while now, he has been one of the best rookies in baseball. We've talked a lot about him, but you don't want this to be something that lingers, because right now the Cubs finally, after those awful vibes on Monday, it feels like you sweep the doubleheader, you've won 4 or 5. Just keep it going, keep it rolling, especially now the pitching, this is a tough stretch. They're in the middle of it. Get through this stretch, play well, and then have that, whenever that day off comes, you can take a breather, but you need Cade Horton.
Yeah, and I think there is a feeling in the organization, we've talked about this before, Sahadev, of the offense is going to come back around. That's just hitting comes and goes. I think the bigger concern is what if 3, 4, 5 pitchers get injured and or hit a wall? And because the staff has overachieved. I think it just kind of hits you when Counsell and an athletic trainer walks out to the mound. You don't know what's going on. Obviously, a blister is not a major injury, but it could be a big-time annoyance. But so that's why seeing Taillon get back out there is big. Shota should be a little fresher for the stretch run because he was sidelined earlier. And, Matthew Boyd's been great, but he has a track record of injuries, did not throw a ton of innings last year. I think a lot of these guys in the bullpen, there have been some surprises and you just don't know, I guess even the best bullpens are always kind of volatile. You know what I mean? So you're just looking at all this together, Taillon's return, it was important.
Yeah. And they've optioned Assad. He'll be back. I think Counsell said that straight up, actually. He's going to be back. They have to leverage. This is, what is this, 15 games in 14 days? Is that what the math is? It's a lot. It's a lot of baseball in a 2-week span. And they need to somehow find a way to get through it with the pitching. But I think I don't know if this will last. I don't think it will. They're not. I think the pitching is if you look at it, with the advanced numbers or the underlying metrics, they don't strike enough guys out. But this is a pitching staff that has pitched over its head in general over the past, like what over its head in the sense that the numbers would suggest, the strikeout numbers would suggest that they shouldn't be pitching this well. I think it goes to show like how good the defense is, how good the game planning is. They have they do a pretty good job of that. I think Shota's huge down the stretch here. He seems like his best version of himself. And I think his performance, I think you got to give some love to Colin Ray. I know I was calling for him at a certain point, like, okay, maybe this has run its course. Really, like, you got to give him some love of what I mean. He could go out there and have a stinker today, and on occasion he does, but he gives them innings. He's really helped them, survive in a tough stretch here. And I mean, throughout the season, he's been there, since for a while now, and you got to give him credit. We'll see what happens with Cade Horton, but I think he's huge and changes a lot of what this team could do, whether he's out there or not.
Yeah, I think to wrap up, you're right to point out, like, there was sort of a subtle vibe shift, or at least it felt really bad on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wrigley had some good energy. You had lots of different players contributing, and also some, unexpected guys, or, not just kind of the marquee names coming through. And Counsell very forcefully made that point. At least for him, his voice kind of went up a notch, and he was a little more animated by his standards of, like, he insists that nothing terrible has happened to this team, that has been, one team in the division on a historic, unbelievable run, while the Cubs have sort of, I guess, not been absolutely atrocious in every aspect of the game. That, like, this is a long season. This is the most challenging season in sports, and that the Cubs have earned the position that they're in, and that position should very likely put them in the playoffs, but they're going to have to go out and earn it.
Yeah, they have currently on Wednesday morning, they have a 2-game lead on the Padres, a 4.5 game lead on the Mets, and a 5.5 game lead on the Reds. They're leading the wild card. They're one of the best teams in baseball. I do think that matters. I think you can have two separate conversations. The offense has been awful and needs to turn it around, and they're not in some dire straits as a team. You just don't want it to go. You don't want to ignore the problem and say all is well, and say, like, they can continue to play like this. They couldn't continue to play like this. These last few games have really helped shift things and the mindset. And now you can breathe a little and say, like, okay, what more can they do? Get on a hot stretch, show everyone how good you can be again. And I think they're capable of that. We've seen it. So let's see what type of run they can get on, what happens in these next 2 games against Milwaukee. And of course, a big road trip in the West Coast. And the next time we talk to you guys, Patrick will be out there, and we'll be getting wrapping up the Brewers and talking about what on paper looks like some easy games, but it's a long West Coast trip. We'll see how they do. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks for listening, everyone.